They say 7 hands together is stronger than one. Making plays, open J's, and open run. If we talking about breaks and shooters filling lanes, all my dogs is down for war. You can tell how they train. Coaches coach and players play, but they learn from each other. If the roles are earned since they secure, we assist one another. Making strides for a ship in the regular season, lacing up these nights, a band of brothers turning into some demons. Through the season, spring to fall, we gon' see who is working. When the winter hit the surface, gon' see who deserve it. Left competition in the dust, now the opposite deserted. Only lions in my circle, we hungry for purpose. Nothing's given all these stripes, you can see that I earned them. Can't buck the system, take the knowledge and study and learn it. Be as strong as the weakest, 1 through 12 is equal. Tried to trap me, saw it now, you know I had to thread the needle. You know I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins in. Yeah. You know I had to thread the needle, try erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins in.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Coaches Show. For the coaches, by the coaches. We have a special guest in the building today, Coach Ox, Northern High School. How you doing, Coach?
What's going on, good brother? How you feeling today?
Nothing much. You went out of the 30 people that actually had a background. We want to appreciate your tech savviness up with the dry erase board crew. We appreciate you, man. We already prepared our pregame speeches, man. We ready to jump ball. I hope you're ready to get down with the get down.
Oh yeah, I didn't know if I was supposed to hoop or not. The intro music had me hyped, so I didn't know, if you already drew up a couple plays, I might can, run a nice pick and pop or something, get it going.
Yeah, you be the pop guy, I be the guy. I just kick it to you, let you shoot it. That's all. I'll be like LeBron. I'll be great. So our first question coming from Southern High School and Will Manning. Thank you, Will.
Ox, what's up, boss?
What's going on, good brother? It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Appreciate you coming on the show. I know you talked about it before, and I know you said you was interested to come on, but I'm glad you found time in your schedule to come on and talk to the crew. So my question to you is, tell everybody who Torrence Oxendine is, as far as your athletic background, and what made you get into coaching?
Well, first and foremost, I have to take my hats off to the entire crew of you all. This is a great notion and an event that you all are doing. I would be remiss if I didn't say that it's a pleasure to be on the dry erase board, first and foremost. So I wanted to make sure that was stated first before I got into anything selfish about myself. Torrence Oxendine is just a normal guy. I'm from Portsmouth, Virginia. Athletic background. I played football, basketball, track, baseball, and soccer in high school. Won a state title for football in '93. Had an interesting high school career as far as with the number of, when you talk about great players, we were talking about this in some other arenas, that you can't really determine champion if somebody's great because they didn't win a championship. We were fortunate enough to be able to play in an era with Allen Iverson and Joe Smith and guys like that. So the first couple of years, we made it to the big dance, but those guys were just super talented. So, we were fortunate enough once Chuck left to win it in football, but couldn't get it done in basketball. So after high school, got a couple accolades in high school for football, basketball, and track. After high school, I went a couple places. I started out at VCU for track and basketball, set out for basketball, part of a championship team for track and field for CAA conference. After that, I did a stint at JUCO at Trinidad State Community College in Colorado, then a year at Virginia State, and then finished up at Loras College in Iowa. So those. I'm a big proponent of the transfer rule just because you don't know what situations happen with different coaches and different players. So athletically, I'm a big proponent of that, because there were certain circumstances that that allowed me to transfer from school to school without a lot of penalties. After college, I did a stint. With show basketball with the Harlem Ambassadors. I also did an AND1 tour before finishing off my playing career in Germany, Spain, and Japan. Got an eye injury in in Germany, and that's what got me into coaching. Is when I came home to Portsmouth, Virginia, where I'm from, and I don't know if everybody knows the history of the 757. It's a shipbuilding area, so it's a lot of industrial commerce. So either in that area, you either work for the city or the shipyard, and so a lot of our youth down there were a little misguided, and they only wanted to participate in sports, like sports was their only refuge. And so my old high school coach asked me to help him out while I was rehabbing my eye injury. And so once I started working with the youth in the area, not only outside of my family members, but just the kids in the city that just needed help with sports, that's when I decided to go into coaching, because one, you only saw black men in certain avenues or places in Portsmouth and in entire Water, Virginia, so to speak. So I wanted to get into coaching to help guys, one, get to school and know that they can do something besides just play sports in the city or be quote unquote neighborhood legends. And two, I wanted to help guys avoid some of the pitfalls or bad advice, so to speak, that was going on at that time. The reason why I started coaching at ICU Norcom was not only because it was my alma mater, but because it was the school where academically it was challenging to get in, but they always had a rich history of academic and athletic excellence. So I just wanted to bring that back to the forefront, because it had lost a little luster on the academic side. So that's pretty much, the athletic background and coaching background. And why I got started in coaching.
Man, I tell you, that was definitely some journey. I talk to you all the time, and I didn't know that myself.
Yeah.
And that's hats off to you, because you easily could have just gave up and said, you know what, maybe it's not meant to be. But for you to play multiple sports in college, and then for you to just, go to different places, just not only to pursue an athletic achievement, but as well as a degree, you definitely serve as a good role model for kids. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The biggest thing that got me into coaching, again, I didn't get the best advice from my high school coaches. My high school coaches went to HBCUs. So mostly everybody in Tidewater, if you were a coach, a black coach in that time frame, between the 70s to the 90s, early 2000s, all of your coaches went to HBCUs. So this is a true story. My teammate Jay. So I had two teammates that were parade All-Americans for football. One was Jay Clark. He ended up going to Hampton, but he had offers from Michigan State, Alabama, places like that. Also, David Turner. He was a parade All-American at defensive end. And he had the same thing. We were eating lunches. Rudy Howard, he had Tom Osborne that was coming every day. Like Nick Saban came to our school. So instead of our coaches saying, hey, these are predominantly white universities and institutions. Hey, this might be an opportunity for you to expand yourself. It was more so pushing, oh no, don't, don't go there. They're not gonna treat you right. Go to the HBCU. And so that in itself, once I got older and realized that sometimes if you're looking up to someone and they give you that advice and you're holding on to their every word, that if you're not getting the advice that's best for you, it might not be beneficial. For instance, out of high school, at 6'4", 225, playing small forward, you're just an average person. But at 6'4", 225, playing wide receiver or free safety, and you're running a 4.4, 4.5, you can make some money on Sundays. So that type of advice is what I felt was needed, instead of just everybody saying, oh, well, you can play this well, or you scored 20 points against this person, so now you're good. No, it doesn't work like that. As a coach, I felt like when I got older, it was my job to eliminate the misinformation that some of us received when I was in school.
But that's definitely great advice. I mean, for the coaches listening to this, it's good to hear that from you. Just giving a perspective as a student athlete. Everybody that we've interviewed pretty much has been a coach. So we've always just been getting stuff from the coach's perspective, but you actually gave it from how it was when you played. So it's actually good to get that, and I'm sure some coach will listen to that and adhere to it. So I'm now passing along to my man, John Kamara, Parkdale High School.
Okay, I appreciate you, Will.
Likewise.
What's going on, Coach Ox? Appreciate you for coming on the show today, my guy.
I appreciate you for giving me the opportunity.
Man, no problem. It's always a good time talking to you. And with our relationship that we've had in the last couple of years, every time I talk to you, I always, learn more information, and it's only right that I allow you to give the people that same information. So I wanted you to speak on your coaching and, Portsmouth, and, the players that you coached out in Portsmouth that you, helped along the way. I know this is a DMV platform, and a lot of people don't know your Virginia, background coaching, the guys that you coach. And I always, get very interested when you start to talk about that. So just give the people a little bit of information about your players you coached in the past before you came to the DMV.
Okay. So when I started off in 2003, I was at Churchland High School, 2004, I'm sorry. I was working with Churchland High School, and I had a kid that his father played in the ABA, Jamel Johnson. Bad News Barnes was his father. We had he actually went to Youngstown State, a really talented guy. Had a lot of D2 guys in that era. Then as I was coaching at Churchland, because I still lived in the projects, I still worked with a lot of the guys that were in the projects that were just really good, but they couldn't afford to, in Tidewater in the 90s and a few years into the 2000s, there was only really a couple AAU teams. So if you didn't play for Boo, see, some of us were fortunate enough to play for Boo. If you didn't, then you just were kind of stuck. And so one of my friends and mentors started the Portsmouth Panthers. And so with the Portsmouth Panthers, we had Vernon Macklin, who went to Georgetown as well as Florida. We also had we had George DeGroat, who was one of your team. He's actually one of your teammates. And these are the guys that I still talk to this day. On my first team, we had Darius Theus, who's an assistant coach at Virginia Commonwealth. He was an assistant coach at Texas with Shaka. Also, his brother played Division II at what's Joey Higginbaum? well, he went down with Joey. I forgot what school Joey's at. Deshaun Williams, who played for Air Force and is now a captain and a major in the Air Force. It's just a lot of guys from just Portsmouth. That Portsmouth, Ben Finney, who played at Old Dominion. Who else did? Dorian Finney-Smith. That's with the Magic, right? The Mavericks right now. It's a number of guys that were very talented in Portsmouth. When down at West Charlotte, we had a couple of guys. Tervondre Graham. I had a couple of guys that I worked with that were at a rival school, Garinger, Reggie Price. I had Chad Frazier, who was the point guard for UAB. Now he's playing in Greece and Turkey, because I know that O is a North Carolina guy originally too. So, I had some guys down in North Carolina that were pretty talented as well. So the DMV, and I say this all the time, the DMV is probably arguably, and I say when I say arguably, I say when I use arguably for the top 3, top 5 spots, arguably top 3 places to coach and for talent in the area. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that the 757 is probably just as loaded with talent. It's a wider range of sports though. But for as far as just basketball wise and coaching, like I think that DMV area is pretty special.
Definitely. And I had to allow you to talk about that because even before I met you, like you said, my man George, he always talked highly of the 757 from Portsmouth. And it was like when I had that conversation with you, I was like, you know what, you sound just like somebody I used to talk to all the time, every day. So I had,
the crazy thing is this, that it's a startling fact for me is that, that the basketball community is so small. When you get to converse with people, and you're such a great, intelligent young brother, young king, as I always tell you, there's guys there that were probably bona fide pros, and they didn't get out of their own way, or they didn't listen to like the coaches that were really trying to push for them. And that was one of the things that separated guys like George, is that George could play with the best of them, but in his project area, it was like every time he went home, I never wanted him to go home because I didn't want him to get into anything once he went home. Every time he came home, he'd either stay with me a day, and we'd be like, oh, no, you're not coming home. And that was how we were as coaches down there. If you're away at school, I don't want you to come back home and get into anything because you have too much to lose. You're supposed to put the city on your back and on your chest and have that pride to show the younger generation that you made it. And like I said, I always appreciate young brothers such as yourself, because you're always receptive. I've never had a conversation with you where you weren't receptive. And remember, I always tell you, I learned just as much from you as you think you say you do, even from me. So like I said, when I get young brothers like you all in the coaching world, like, I just think it's amazing what you all are doing for the young people. And I always want to commend you, while I'm giving out flowers.
Definitely appreciate that, Coach. Definitely. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass you on Antonio Williams, head coach at Bladensburg High School.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yeah, Ox, man, glad to have you on here. Finally got everything, the particulars out the way. And one thing I can say, man, I think our last conversation on the floor, you were injured. And I think it was a crab ball practice. And I think that's the last time I saw you physically, I believe. If not, I could be wrong. But I know when we always talk about how to make things better. And your time at Laurel, I appreciated when you were there because we knew that we was going to a basketball game. We knew that we was going to have water. We knew that we was going to have the necessary things, good basketballs. And you held your program, as you do at all your schools, you held your program where it needed to be for the county and that it taught a lot of other guys how to actually do things. And I know it was kind of tough. And I want to go back a little bit, and you talked about being in the 757, and I'm 919. Before it was a 252, it was 919. But to talk about those opportunities, you know, where they're plentiful up here. You know, down south, you either worked at, you wanted to go to the military, or you want to work at the filling station. That was it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, to show our kids those things and to teach those things and know what a grind is actually all about is awesome. And I thank you for sharing that story. My next question, though, we're talking about with Laurel. Can you tell us how your time was at Laurel and how long were you there?
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to commend you on the success that Bladensburg has and that continues to have. And Brother Small is still on the call. He was a good part. John, you guys, when you had the Bladensburg community, well, you still have it on a stronghold. And like that's probably one of the biggest things that I think that people need to know about Bladensburg is just how you all are close knit. And it's not just about basketball. It's about developing young men. And that's what I always prided myself on at Laurel. And so before I get into Laurel, I just want to say what a great job you've done at Bladensburg, especially with the coaching tree that you have and everybody going their separate ways and still being successful. That speaks volumes about you as a man and as a coach and as a facilitator. So I want to give you that flower. Okay. Now, at Laurel, I got to Laurel in 2010. They had been pretty successful a couple years. You know, they made a state run, and you know, the year I got there, the year before, you know, they had done, you know, they had probably gone maybe 3 or 4 and like 18 or something. Excuse me. So I knew that we just had to just tweak the culture a little bit just to try to get things back. Cottrell and Antoine Gaither, I think they did tremendous jobs with what they had. You know, Keith Cottrell, who's an assistant at Howard, he went to the state with the 2018, and then I think Antoine went to he was a regional finalist for the next year, and then they had a down year. But during my time at Laurel, I think that PG County is unique in every aspect of not only just sports, but PG County in general. So when you have to compete with your Bladensburgs, your Wises, your Roses, your Bowies, your Parkdales, everybody's talented. However, some of our talent pools might be a little bit more plentiful than other people's talent pools. So at Laurel, we never really had anybody big over 6'5", over 6'4", except for one year when we had Ty Marshall, who went on to play at Bowie State and is now an assistant coach over there. But the biggest thing I would say about my time at Laurel is that I just wanted to make sure that things were done the right way and that they were taught the game the right way. We had some great experiences. We just had our 4 or 5 guys that graduated from their respective colleges. One of the main ones being 1,000-point scorer Kirk Hawkins, who had an exceptional career at Laurel. But from the holiday tournaments to just putting on events, you know, we started the PG County Challenge where we went 1A, 2A, 3A versus 4A. You participated in 3 of those with us. Just getting everybody in PG to try to get on the same page. Because at Laurel, I always knew that it was going to be tough to get. You got to think about this. You got to get through Bladensburg, Rose, Wise, Bowie, Suitland, Parkdale, Duval to try to get to a regional final. That's a gauntlet. So every year, every game, it was a true battle, and it was a true test of your will and fortitude. And so I just always wanted to make sure that we were competitive, I always wanted to make sure that when other coaches and programs came in, that they saw us doing things the right way, and whatever they needed, I just wanted to make sure that I was there for them. As far as PG County coaches, I always wanted to make sure that I was accessible to our PG County coaches. And if you came in Laurel, that you had whatever you needed to be successful. And it wasn't about winning at basketball. It was just about winning at life, which is still the same mantra that I have, is that if I can help somebody along the way, then my living won't be in vain. So therefore, if at Laurel I can do anything that was to help somebody else out, especially I really wanted to see our young coaches do well, especially when Dez was over at High Point. I had some conversations with Dez to make sure that Dez knew the lay of the land and how to get stuff done. So like I said, at Laurel, that was what I really wanted to focus on, and I hope that along the way some guys learn some basketball too.
Absolutely. And to talk about that, I just thought about when you said the land for Dez. We used to always have some quality conversations too about things that I didn't know. And I go back to school and I ask those things. They look at me like how you know that? Like, how you know all the basketball money supposed to be going to you? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So I definitely appreciate you for that one.
Yeah.
Okay. It was great, man. Especially those battles, man. I'm just thinking back at those lower games. If I ain't wrong, if my memory serves me correct, I think that was like my first year being at the head coach position in 2010 when you got there, if I'm not mistaken. I just gotta go back and look, but it's crazy that you said that.
You're correct. You all handed out a lot of L's to Laurel. I'll give you that. Like I said, I wanted to make sure it was competitive, and I think they were competitive games. I do.
I think if I ain't mistaken, I know John probably get mad at me. I think John do a layup like in 2000.
I was gone.
So was that Laurel game when you went too early? Or was that High Point?
No, that was a Bowie. That was in 07.
Bowie. Oh, okay. Sorry to bring it back up.
Hard time. Come on, John. See, he gave you the wrong year and everything. See how he does.
He just went a little bit too early. That's all. We winning and learning, man. Winning and learning.
Oh, man. That's a good one.
And we went on to win a few more games after that and had a historic year, man. So we definitely appreciate John. So I'm going to pass it over to our buddy, Will Maynard from Southern High School.
Okay.
Coach.
Yes.
Definitely enjoying listening to some of the stuff that you're giving us right now. You're definitely giving us some nuggets too, so we definitely appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
So my question is, and I understood that you helped out, at McKinley the last couple of years, but can you explain us that transition from coming from, coaching in PG County at Potomac and Laurel, and then going to Northern High School where you have like a different demographic?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So in Laurel, it was it turned into, when I left, when I got there, it was 60-40. It was 80-20 with blacks and minorities, and then the Hispanic population. Hispanics are minorities, but the Hispanic population. So when I left, it was 60-40. So it was a very large Hispanic population. So it helped us in certain sports, but it didn't really benefit us in basketball per se. Okay. After leaving Laurel, I went over to McKinley Tech. And at McKinley Tech, I simultaneously coached two teams. I was the middle school boys head coach because they didn't have a coach. And I had the number 1 8th grader in D.C., Terrell Webster, who's now at St. John's playing. He played varsity last year. And I also coached the McKinley Tech girls. I was the assistant coach and lead recruiter for them. So that demographic, when you go from having some diversity to, at McKinley Tech, it's a diverse group. However, not a lot of people athletically you don't get the big turnouts that you do at your other DCPS public schools. So that in itself, the issue of trying to get girls to come out for basketball because you know, you don't want to play basketball because you know when you play Anacostia or Dunbar, you might get beat by 60, or you know, you have so much homework that you don't want to come out for sports, that type of stuff. Okay, so that was the demographic at McKinley. At Northern is gone to the other extreme. So I think Northern is probably and Coach Tobias probably can help me out more so with that one. I'm willing to say that it's probably 90-10, 80-20. I would say 90-10 in the Calvert County spectrum as far as you know, minorities to non-minorities. So yeah. So am I correct about that's about right?
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay, so 90% of your population at Northern plays multiple sports, and basketball is pretty much secondary, in my opinion, for them. So it's been a challenge. This year was probably one of my, I want to say, one of my best coaching years. Not so much win-loss, but to take over a program that you know, they had a couple of issues the year before, and to get young men to buy back into playing basketball, and trying to do it at a competitive level when they know that that's not their primary sport. You know, I think that was the biggest transitional issue that I faced. Like I said, in PG County, you know, PG County is a basketball county, football county. So kids want to play. Even though they might not be as talented, they still play a lot. At McKinley Tech, DC, same thing with PG. It might not be, the DC kids might not be as skilled in certain aspects, but they're just gritty and tough. But at McKinley Tech, because it's an application school and they come for academic focus, you don't really get that many gritty kids that are willing to just put in the time for academics and athletics. But at Northern, they're a high academic school. Calvert County is pretty good blue ribbon system. So at Northern, I think that, you know, once again, that biggest transition was going from a predominantly black population to a predominantly white population, and trying to be what I should as a coach and as a black male coach to not only the student athletes on my team, but actually all of the black student population at Northern. Because if you don't see anybody that looks like you on a regular basis, you tend to not be able to identify properly, or you may have issues identifying. And with me, I like the role that I have at Northern, because I feel like I'm part of the Calvert County community, such as Coach Jennifer, Coach Gross. Those guys, those are great guys over at Huntingtown, by the way. But you know, I need to be the best role model and black male example that they see, so that when they go out into the world, they know how to, one, interact with other black males or black authority figures. Also, they get that experience where is if I have something or I can't go to this teacher or this coach, I can go to Coach Ox and say, hey, can I talk to you? And you know that somebody's there to listen with confidentiality and fidelity to try to make sure that your needs are addressed.
Yeah, you know, and you know, I always thought the SMAC conference was very interesting. Just one, because you have 3 counties all in one league. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's very unique. And then just like the way that the divisions are set up, you know what I mean? You'll see the Waldorf side that is majority predominantly black schools. Mm-hmm. And then you see the side with you guys and Tobias and Leonardtown, you know, where those schools, you know, majority of those schools are predominantly white schools. So it's just very interesting about, you know, the dynamics of that. What about the gameplay? Do you see any difference between PG and the SMAC?
Uh, PG, well, let's say this. They officiate differently in the different counties, okay? I think that you're allowed to play a little bit more. I'll say you can play a little bit more in PG, more so than in the SMAC. Talent level, I think that there's some really talented players in the SMAC and teams in the SMAC. I do think that in PG County, they work on their basketball games a little bit more. Albeit, I would think that the SMAC kids would be able to, especially at my school, and everybody's got trainers now. But I think that when people are going to trainers, I don't know if they're specifically working on things that transition to the game, because I think that the PG County has the element where a lot of those guys either still play outside or they play with competition that, hey, let's go here and let's all play at this one gym. Or, they'll get together and play with the better players. In the SMAC, it's a little bit different because, again, basketball is not a lot of these guys' primary sport. So you'll have guys who are playing multiple sports, such as you at Southern. You've done and let me throw this in and give you this flower. You've done a phenomenal job at Southern with multi-sport athletes and athletes that primarily aren't basketball players. I think that you've done phenomenal. And
Thanks.
again, you actually lost your best player this year, and you still had one of the best teams in the state of Maryland. So that's a hell of a coaching job, and that speaks to you. Again, not only as a coach, but as a man itself. So
Appreciate that.
Oh, always, brother, always.
Mm.
So, again, PG County, you get to play a little bit more. The SMAC, it's more, I'm not going to say more touch fouls. I just think that they have an eye for more in the SMAC.
So, my last question, because I don't want to, hog all the stuff, but what's the difference between, I know you coached down in the 757, and I know you coached in Charlotte, and you're currently coaching up here. What's the difference between those three areas that you coached in?
Okay, so in any, I like to say in any area where you have a lot of apartments or projects or inner cities, I think that the not only just basketball, but sports in general is different when you don't have like the big houses or the how should I put it? I didn't come from a 2-parent household, so I felt like in the 757, a lot of people didn't come. The most successful athletes were guys who really didn't have the 2-parent households or these great role models that their parents worked two and three jobs, and they didn't see their parents until late at night. So they went to the court or to the gym to bide their time, the Boys and Girls Club. I saw the same type of thing in PG County and in North Carolina, especially in North Carolina. They're big with the Boys and Girls Club, especially in the Raleigh Triad area and in the Charlotte area. So they get to, you playing a lot more. Up here, it's a select, people say that the DMV is a hotbed of talent, and it is. But it's a select section in those areas. You can't just say in the DMV that, oh, everybody in the DMV can play. No, that's not fully correct. It's certain pockets where people can flat out boogie. And then in certain pockets where they can't. So I think that's the difference is everywhere you go in like the 757, you'll have areas where, oh man, that school or that region can play. Same thing with North Carolina, like the 919 area code that O mentioned before, like with your Raleigh, Durham, those type of stuff. People don't even know that there are so many pros that come out of Kingston, North Carolina, that is unheard of. But that unless you really have been in those areas, you wouldn't know about it. And then up here, I really think it's a great brand of basketball overall. But I want everybody to realize the narrative that not everybody in the DMV can flat out play.
Yeah, yeah. Coach O is definitely a big advocate for North Carolina. I mean, he definitely keeps us abreast on talent in North Carolina and stuff like that. And I remember going to camps and stuff like that. The North Carolina dudes could play. I mean, I saw a lot of them dudes, and it seemed like that they were 4 or 5 time reclasses because they looked like they had, you know what I'm saying, college builds and stuff already. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that about the North Carolina dudes. I haven't been too familiar with 757 dudes, but I know them Carolina dudes, man, could really hoop.
Oh, yeah. Those areas, they're really talented players.
Yeah. So I'm going to pass it along to Coach Tobias Jennifer from your rival, Huntington High School.
It's a pleasure.
What's going on, Coach?
Not much, Coach.
How's everything? Man, I tell you what, you know, we got a chance to meet last year at Coach Pratt's coaching social, and ever since then, I will say, you know, it's been a pleasure having you in the SMAC. You've done a tremendous job at Northern. I commend you on that, man. You took on a tough job. You know, obviously that's our rival. It's not a tough place, or it is. It's not the easy place to coach, and especially with you saying that you got the multiple sport athlete kids, but you've done a great job up there in your first year. So I want to commend you on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I actually need to commend you because you had a very successful season, as well as, you know, you earned another accolade to put on your resume with Coach of the Year along with Pee Wee. So, you know, once again, I want to make sure that everybody knows that, you know, that was a great job by you, and you're up-and-coming coach that I think is going to have a great future in the world of basketball coaching.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I appreciate that, man. I'll definitely tell him that, Coach, great. And, you know, it takes a village. And I've been sitting back, I've been listening about your journey, about your story. And, you know, it's one that I really didn't know much about. And you know, we have all these coaches on here, and it's always great to hear the backgrounds and what actually gets them going and gets them driving. And I will say that the people from Virginia, man, they're hardworking people, and you're a testament of that. Just from, you know, sitting back watching you on social media for sure. You know, it may not always be your kid, but you're trying to sell everybody's kid. And I think that's just amazing, because sometimes we get caught up on, you know, I want to work with my kids only, but I've seen you, you know, pull strings for everybody's kid. And, you know, you've definitely made the conference of SMAC a lot better with your idea, you know, coming onto the Coaches Association and giving us your honest opinion, man. And sometimes honesty isn't always the easiest thing to take from some people, because I think some people get offended. But you know what? I'll be the first one to say that sometimes that's what we need in this world is some honest people, and you do a great job of that, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna get straight to it.
Okay.
You know, it's like I said, it's been a pleasure. You're at my rival school, and we had some great battles this year. It's been a pleasure to have you in the SMAC, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. But what is the biggest misconception of the SMAC that you've seen so far? And then my second question is, how has the pandemic affected you going into your second season? Because I'm sure you had some big hopes for the offseason, because you get those guys back. You know, you get a chance to actually work. You would have had a chance to work with them, you know, and you didn't get that last year. So what is the biggest misconception? And then, you know, how has it affected you?
Okay. Yeah. Well, the biggest misconception about the SMAC conference, in my opinion, is that it's a second tier conference, or that the SMAC doesn't have any players, and that's just not. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. You know, some of the best players, not only in the SMAC, can hold their own, but can really go out and do well at the next level. And so, when I came into the SMAC, I first encountered the SMAC in 2009, and one of my greatest coaching friends, Dale Lambert. I lost to Dale in the regional finals I think he went on to win the state that year when I was at Potomac. I had a pretty good team. He had a pretty good team, and you know, at the end of the day, he prevailed. And you know, that was my first taste of the SMAC, and I was like, man, those guys can really play. And a lot of times, PG gets thrown in the light because you see Rose is winning championships, and you know, and Wise, you know, has loaded teams, those type of things. But the SMAC has players, and they have really good teams, and they have really good coaches, such as, you know, again, such as yourself. Look at the season that Huntingtown had. So I think that that's a misconception that needs to be changed, and I hope to be part of the way that we change the narrative about that. The pandemic has really affected us in an adverse way because we don't get to communicate with our teams as normally do. I do it through group text and Microsoft Teams because, you know, they told us we couldn't use Zoom and things of that nature. But I just try to encourage the guys to keep working on the game and keep improving their mental health, because basketball is 90% mental. The physical part you can learn. But, you know, our guys at Northern, I think, have to develop a different mindset, and we're trying to instill in them a mindset, what we call a championship mindset, whereas it doesn't matter what you're doing or if you're playing a sport, that mindset will help you be successful. Because life isn't measured in wins and losses, it's just measured in wins and lessons, because the lessons that I learned will help me to win the next time around. So the pandemic has taught us all that we have to value everything that we have, and especially in the basketball arena. I didn't get the chance to work with those guys a lot last year, and I was hoping that, you know, that I would get a full off season. But whether we have a season or not, I think that because of the mentality that they're starting to develop, when we get back in the gym, we can pick up right where we left off.
Oh man, Coach, let me tell you something. You just dropped some gems, and doing a great job of you know, detailing things and giving out so many different lessons, and actually some of the things that I'll take back from my team. But you know, you're like I said, no matter what, even though you're not able to get this off season, I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to continue to change the culture at Northern, and you to do great things. That's not a doubt in my mind. So you know, that's hats off to you. And you know, I know we're going to battle next year. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm sure.
I hope so. I hope I'm competitive. I hope I'm competitive. I hope I'm competitive.
I'll say this. Like I haven't been coaching nearly as many of the guys on this panel, but our game last year at Northern, first of all, the gym was hot as hell, but our game and that double overtime victory, and I think we had it, you know, got you guys by 3, and we barely squeaked that one out. That was the most intense and insane environment I've been in some time. Just the, you know, the ups and downs and the calls and, you know, the crowds, reactions. I mean, that was a amazing game. It goes down in history books and between the two schools. But you did a great job keeping your composure, and your guys fought all the way to the end, man. And that just a testament of how hard you work and the type of person that you are.
Thank you. Hopefully I can develop a little bit more skill, and you know, the outcome may be a little different a couple times.
I'm gonna tell you one thing. You know, when I first got the job at Huntingtown, the first thing, you know, a lot of them said you can't lose to Northern, and I've been blessed that we haven't so far. But I tell you what, you're right there on the cusp, and those guys that you have up there are really talented guys, and that's a great group you have, and you're right there. So I'm trying to, you know, widen that margin a little bit, but it's becoming a little bit more difficult. But you know, you're doing a great thing, and you're doing a great job. So my hat's off to you for that. So I'm gonna pass it. I'm gonna throw the live. I'm gonna throw the live over to Des Wade from Blake High School.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Coach Ox.
Yes, my brother. Yes, indeed. How are you? It's always a pleasure.
I'm good. I'm good, man. I like to first start out before my question to say, man, thank you. Like you said, you did help me tremendously in year 1, And I guess the biggest thing is you didn't have to. You were a school that was a mile away. So being that we were so close, you really didn't have to care at all. You could have just worried about trying to get after this new guy on the block. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, and again, you've gone on to another endeavor, and I had the pleasure of watching you participate in our holiday tournament and the phenomenal job that you did with that team. And as a first-year coach anywhere, you know, you're building cultures and you're building traditions, and you're actually adding on to the tradition that they already had. And next year, you know, I hope we have a season just so. A lot of people don't know how well you did in our holiday tournament, but I would like to say how well you did, and I'd like to see you back in that championship game. And I actually want to see you against Coolidge, because Coolidge is coming back this year. So I'm hoping that I can get that rematch for this year.
Hey, listen, I mean, me and the staff had a good talk, and we was like, we got to go back to see Coolidge.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
Yeah.
So we look forward to that matchup.
Mm-hmm.
That's just sip the jerky.
So my question is, man, can you explain how it is being a AD and a head coach? Like, how do you manage the responsibilities?
So the biggest thing that I always found about being in charge of anything is that you have to make sure that everybody knows that you're equal and you're fair. See, the difference between good ADs and good admin is that although you might not treat people equally, you always treat everyone fairly. And that's the same thing that we do with our players. Now, one thing that I prided myself on at Laurel is that I was fortunate enough to have some friends that would look out for me through different ventures and events. Shout out to Keith Stevens from Nike Team Takeover, who used to always take care of me and help me out with things when I was at Potomac and Laurel. So I did a lot of fundraisers and events so that I didn't have to use basketball money, and everybody could see that I was bringing more money in and everybody was taken care of. As an AD, if people and your coaches see that you're the hardest worker, then they usually will work with you. And if you have everything detailed and laid out and you give people stuff ahead of time and you let them know that this is how it is, this is how we can work around it, I think that's where a lot of ADs in this time era, who you can't always just push papers. You have to have interpersonal relationships with all of your coaches, and not only the coaches, but the admin, the community. Because I got a lot done late at night. It's a lot of late hours, you know, as an AD. But if you can manage your time a little bit better, because you have to one, have an understanding family. Because if you're in a relationship or you have kids or obligations that take up a lot of time, you have to let those people know that, you know, that it's got to be an understanding and that you need their help. And I got a lot of help from a lot of people. And I always had supportive admin for the most part. And so during basketball season, I had enough volunteers and people who actually wanted the best for me to make sure that everything was taken care of so that I could just focus on basketball and, you know, keep that going.
Man, that's definitely great information, because a lot of people think it's not possible or it can't be done. So just managing that time is a huge piece, and knowing that there's definitely going to be some late nights, and then having that support as your family, man, that's huge. So we appreciate that good info, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Coach O.
Okay.
At the stable.
Okay.
Well, we bring them and don't need them. Thank you, man. Let's go segue right into my next question, man. Can you explain some of the experiences, or how was it to be with Team Takeover and to also work alongside of Keith Stevens? Can you explain that for the people?
Yeah. Well, Keith's Keith's I think he's a brilliant basketball mind. Of course, he has a multitude of connections, and he's done a lot of coaching in the area. Keith brought me on when I was at Potomac. I had a couple pretty good seasons at Potomac. So I talked to Keith because we had seen each other at tournaments before, and so it was just fortunate for me to be able to join Team Takeover and come on. Actually, shout out to my EYB Apollo that I didn't even pay attention to. So the whole Team Takeover experience is just like what I try to model for my programs. It's about family for Keith. Keith's big on family and relationships. The experiences that I've had just being around Keith, the other coaches, a lot of coaches have gone on to the Division I college ranks. And it's been a multitude of guys that are talented enough to play not only at the highest high major level and the pros, but you had some guys that have been D2, D3, because everybody thinks that for Takeover everybody just goes high major. No, you got high major, mid major, low major. You got some guys that go D3s. You got some guys that could have played D1 that went D3 because academically they wanted to be doctors or things like that. So just as a program, being able to be a part of that has helped me tremendously in coaching. It teaches me patience. And sometimes it's great to learn how to be a great assistant. Being with Takeover taught me how to be a great assistant because I had a lot of responsibilities, in the organization that are behind the scenes type thing. A lot of people always look at Takeover and you see the glitz and the glam. You also got to look at what Keith and company do behind the scenes. And so that's what I think taught me a whole lot about the game. And one of the greatest experiences I've had in my life was being able to, win a Peach Jam, win several Nike championships. So those experiences have helped mold me into the veteran coach that I am right now.
You're absolutely right, man. To be with last year was my first year coaching with Takeover, and like you said, being an assistant, that's a plus. Anybody that can do that can be a great coach because that's what it takes. Somebody that's going to be willing to, know your role, work your role great, and do what you have to do. But one thing I know about Keith that I've learned over the years, because a lot of people assume that I just met him last year, but over the years, seeing him navigate and help people, you know what I mean? And he's always watching without even saying nothing. He's the type of person that's going to be quiet. He's going to then come out and say like a 5-second line to you and say, oh, and then you're like, how you know that? And he's always watching you and wants you to do well. So I appreciate you, man. Insight on Coach over at Keith Steves over at Takeover. So I'm going to pass the rock over to the other 44 in the room, my man Desmond Small from Washington Vintage University.
What's up, Ox, man? Welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Des. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence.
Nah, man, I was just trying to get the invite to all of the college coaches stuff. Maybe I'm not that important of a college coach yet.
I sent you the last two.
Appreciate you being on the show. So my question is, with you coaching state to state, county to county, my biggest thing was talk about how you maintain, with the recruiting relationships, because obviously you coach state to state, county to county. You do a lot of things, hosting a lot of college coaches, doing multiple things with college coaches. How do you maintain all of those relationships? And you do a lot for a lot of kids outside of the area that don't necessarily play for you at Northern or anything. How do you, relationships is everything in this building. How do you maintain those relationships? Doing all of the things that you do, like with Takeover and everything else.
Yeah, well, okay. And first off, let me say that you're one of my favorite college coaches. Period. You went from the stable over to WAU, and this is a perfect example. Is that the respect that I have for you as a coach and as a brother, that it continued when you left the stable over to Washington and Venice. So I use those type of things to keep my relationships going with different college coaches. And another thing, and I'll shout Keith Stevens out again for this. Keith Stevens and Kenny Johnson have been two of the biggest people who've helped me out throughout the years. Keith will call and say, hey, won't you talk to this coach? Or, hey, won't you call this guy? This guy wants to talk. And once we got to talking, I don't talk to coaches about just basketball. I actually call and check on coaches and send an email. Hey, how's your family? Hey, how's the season going? Hey, y'all had a rough one, but you'll get through it. Like, once you make a connection with a coach, it's not always about basketball, because in life, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to call him when I have a kid. No, you want to call them when you don't have a kid. So when you do have a kid, they'll at least take a look at it or take your phone call. See, a lot of times we as high school coaches, we're not proactive enough when just going out and reaching out to other college coaches. The thing that I've done, and it's fared pretty well, is that when I talk to a college coach, I'm always honest about whatever the kid is or whoever the kid is, the character and everything. Because if I send you a kid and that kid doesn't work out, then it reflects me and it reflects the program that I'm talking about. So in my eyes, the best way to maintain relationships is to always be open and honest, and to always be just personable. It's not about basketball. I'm fortunate enough that I've been to, the Mamba Academy, the top 100 camps, the Nike camps. When you go to places like that and guys are just sitting around talking, I try not to even talk. I listen because I want to soak up as much as possible. So then when they ask you a question that they want you to interject and interact, you can actually give something of some substance, and people will value your opinion and value what you say. So that's the biggest thing that I think helps me in relationships, is that coaches can call me and laugh and joke, and it doesn't even have to be about basketball. But when they call about basketball, then I give them an honest, objective opinion, because a lot of times we're subjective because we either know a kid or we want a kid to be at a certain place or a certain level. But if that's not the right fit for that kid, then it's not gonna benefit anybody, you as a coach or that person as a player. So to make sure you maintain and keep relationships of trust, I think that's really what's been the biggest asset for me as a coach, just going from different states and different organizations.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that feedback. We one word that's constantly discussed on this panel is relationships, and we see you have a lot of relationships and a lot of connections and stuff like that. What would you say for a young coach that's taking over as a head coaching job at high school that don't have all those connections? What would you say, like 3 tips for them to be able to build that network outside of everything that you kind of said? What were some things that you would say that they need to do to build that connection so they can build their network up to have more college coaches to do what you're doing?
My first rule, my first suggestion, a piece of advice would be to be humble. When I came in the game, I felt like I knew a lot more than I did. And so I noticed that a lot of younger coaches, they don't listen to the veteran coaches or reach out to the veteran coaches. It's a veteran coach in every league that's been successful. Reach out to that veteran coach and pick their brain and ask them for help. The second is be proactive when reaching out to college coaches. Send an intro email with your name, what you're trying to do with your program, and ask to go to a practice or a game, or ask to, just talk for a few minutes, because a lot of coaches are open to that. And the third one is know yourself and know your kid, the kids that you're trying to, help. If if I'm starting out a high school program and I don't know anything about the demographic in that area or how I can best serve them with my skill set, then I'm not going to be that successful there. So if I can learn everything I can about that school and that community and how I can intertwine the community into my program and how my program can help the community as well as put a spotlight on it, I think that those three things will help you tremendously when starting out a high school program. So again, let's go back and revisit it. The first piece of advice would be to humble yourself and learn possibly can from the veteran coaches. Two, excuse me. And two is just make sure that you present you and your program to the college coaches proactively. Don't wait for a college coach to call you because that might not happen. So reach out and make yourself available to the college coaches. And then three, just being a part of the community for your high school and making sure that the community and your basketball program are intertwined as one. Those three things I think will garner success for your program for many years.
Man, I appreciate you dropping all of those Jews for the people. And I appreciate the compliments, man, when you first started out answering the questions. I'm passing it over to Coach Desmond Wade from Blake.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Ox, so my favorite memory of you is, of course, our battles. We had some great battles in those first couple years. But I remember, I don't know, did you hurt your knee or your leg, and you were maybe in a wheelchair at the time,
mm-hmm.
but you were still coaching your tail off from the sideline. So that just spoke to your work ethic, man, and you was willing to give it all for these wins and just competing. So I just want to ask you, what's some of your most memorable moments as a coach, whether it's on the basketball floor or outside of it?
Well, in that year that you mentioned, I had torn I shattered my knee, the patella, and I broke the femur in a celebrity basketball game that I used to hold every year with the NFL and NBA guys. So that actually was one of my best memories because it took a lot to coach in that. A lot of my favorite memories are not on the court. When I watch guys graduate and when guys send me Zooms and FaceTimes with their kids and being successful, because I always tell people I want you to be 3 times more successful than me and 10 times if you can. So a lot of my favorite memories are just literally non-basketball related. I've had, because the championships fade, you remember your championships. Yeah, you remember winning games. But at the end of the day, did I make men better or did I make ladies better? Because I coach females as well. So did I make people better? Did I make society better by teaching this game and teaching them life skills using basketball as that medium? And so I will say one of my favorite memories was this year. I went to Potomac, and the last time Potomac played Northern was 2009 when, Potomac, I was at Potomac and we beat Northern pretty handily. Well, they returned the favor this year, but I had so many of my original team present at that game. And so that meant more to me than the game itself, because that means that I had that much of an impact on guys that they really came back to say, oh, no, coach, we sitting behind your bench. We're not sitting on Potomac's bench. And so that spoke volumes to me and made me feel like probably that I've done my job to a certain extent.
Man, that's so impactful. Like, I haven't been in the game as long as you, but to have made the transition, and then kind of have some of the high point guys come back and sit behind a bench, or they like, man, we in the locker room, like, and it's a great feeling as a coach, just to know that you're doing something right and building those relationships. So I mean, I'm thankful for this whole coaches, all the coaches that are on here, and definitely appreciate you coming on the show today. I'm gonna throw this behind the back pass to Coach O.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I mean, I had some memories like that too. I had it brought up in a Zoom conversation. I could not believe that I'm playing Parkdale and people that went to Blade over there rooting for Parkdale. I just couldn't. I just couldn't understand it. You know, but it went full circle because when we played against Springbrook, you had the Parkdale coaching staff in our locker room. You know what I mean? So that's definitely how things work out. But I just could not believe that I saw so many like faces of people that I knew that was rooting for the other side 50-50, you know what I mean? But pulling for the young fella and pulling for me. So it's like it was a good thing to see. Before we close out, man, would be my honor, man. You got to explain right here. Tell us more about Cerebral Basketball Solutions.
Okay. Well, Cerebral Basketball Solutions is my nonprofit that I'm big on helping everybody. I started this a few years back when people couldn't afford to play an AAU tournament. So what I would do is some of the players that I had coached that went on to the professional ranks, and some of the nightclub guys that I knew in the nightlife, I get donations and I take out of I pay for stuff myself. Like I didn't ask kids for a dime because I felt like if you couldn't afford to play and you know you want to play, I'm going to try to provide an avenue for you to play. So I started that, and it became pretty solid. I even kept it going even when I joined Takeover. A lot of people don't know, but I have separate teams and things that I do in different areas, such as the 757 and Carolina, places like that, where I help put teams together and sponsor those teams out of my own dime. And so that's big for me. And the second part of that is I try to help as many kids that might not have the exposure chances that, you know, they can do that. Like as you can see. So right now I'm actually late, but it's worth it. I have a Zoom call as you're scrolling up. I have 25 college coaches that are going to say what they need for next year for 2021, because with this pandemic that, you know, we don't know what's going on with the 2021, so they can't be seen. So that for me, that's my way of giving back, is making sure that I always can provide an avenue to help people. And with Cerebral Basketball Solutions, I do that through camps, clinics, AAU teams, and college exposure services.
Yeah, great that you shared that, man. And I definitely got your email. I got the stuff I'm about to send off to you as well. We appreciate you for doing that, man, because a lot of times I think we learn this as we go on. And I think Tobias said this earlier. We starting to learn, you know, as we coach a little longer, that it's not all it was about our kids. And sometimes we think that in the beginning, and then when you notice that the more you reach out and show the whole conference, the whole PG County, the whole SMAC, more coaches start coming in, and then here comes that Tracy McGrady effect. When Vince Carter was there, now not Vince Carter, but when Flip Murray was there, now you see Flip Murray. And you're like, wow, who is this kid? You know what I mean? So you start seeing other kids from come to see somebody else play that night, you know, and it goes on and on like that as well. So we definitely appreciate you. And I know you run a little tad bit late, man. We want to say thank you.
This is, I mean, when you're, once again, and I always tell you all that you all are doing this is amazing, and it's needed. So for me to have the honor and the privilege to be on the dry erase board, you know, I think that was an opportunity that I didn't want to pass up. Even being a few minutes late, it was very worth the experience that I had today and the fellowship, because at the end of the day, that's what we're supposed to be in it for, is to be able to fellowship and communicate with our brethren and just try to help everybody through this game of basketball.
Yeah, we appreciate you, man. On the behalf of the panel, and I know everybody's signing off, we want to say thank you again, man, and we'll see you soon on the Zoom call.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I look forward to it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
the opposite deserted. Only lions in my circle, we hungry for purpose. Nothing's given, all these stripes, you can see that I earned them. Can't buck the system, take the knowledge, just study and learn it. Be as strong as the weakest, 1 through 12 is equal. Tried to trap me, saw it now, you know I had to thread the needle. You know, I had to thread the needle, dry erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins eating. Yeah, you know, I had to thread the needle, dry erase and draw it up, just trying to see my youngins eating.